Happy Thursday, everyone. My name is Sherelle Dorsey, founder and CEO of The Plug. We cover the Black innovation economy and do this in a very data-driven way. I'm really excited about our conversation today. We partnered up with World Business Chicago as they kick off the Chicago Venture Summit, Future of Food 2022. We have the privilege of speaking to some incredible women in tech and VC. Yesterday, we had an exhilarating conversation with Daisha Gulati. And today we have Renata Merino joining us. She has a background as an entrepreneur and is in VC as an investor and has really just taken the Chicago world, especially even Silicon Valley, by storm. So we're going to learn a bit more about her journey and in particularly her thoughts on the trends of the future of food as we again are in the Future of Food Summit Week here in Chicago. So Renata, I'm going to have you join me on stage to start being introduced to our audience here today.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm so honored and excited to be here. This is a great opportunity. I appreciate the invite and excited to talk health, nutrition, and food.
All of the things. So, Renata, you have a long and storied history of being in the venture investing space, as well as an entrepreneur yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit today just about your background, and then we can jump into more of your interest in investing within the food space?
Sure. So I'm, let's see, the origins. I am a Latina. I grew up, my dad's from Mexico. He's a retired MD. So he's a doctor. I grew up in a medical family. My mom was his nurse. So my parents were entrepreneurs themselves, built their own medical practice back in the 80s outside of Boston when there was a huge Latin influx of people who were sick and literally didn't speak the language. So I come from a family that built their wealth out of 3 daughters who are all about girl power and embracing our culture. But my background primarily has been as an operator. So I worked in the fitness industry in tech back in 99. I worked for Reebok, working for the CEO at age 26, understanding the footwear industry as it relates to working out. A lot of my foundation has been on market research and user validation and understanding people's behaviors in the health space. Also, as a former athlete, I've always been personally vested in nutrition and food as it relates to performance and how it makes me feel every day when I wake up, and what are the behavioral trends for individuals to make them make wiser choices in their nutrition. Also, I worked as a leader and executive at Life Fitness that makes fitness equipment for globally around the world. So I led cross-functional teams right after business school. I was a Booth MBA Merit Scholar, went to Booth 20 years ago to really understand innovation in all different industries. But back in the early 2000s, venture wasn't really big. It was just getting startup. Even the startup scene was very small. But I did entrepreneurship inside corporate. So I had big budgets, big budgets to be able to do innovation inside big corporations, Fortune 500 companies. So I led a cross-functional team globally of 15 people, which included mechanical, electrical, market research, and the biomechanics team, which is the team that actually measures how the body is affected by nutrition, by sports, by working out. So really understanding the science behind it. And then I moved into entrepreneurship back in 2008. I actually worked in the toy business, licensing business. It wasn't food at all, but just my first time in a 10-person team, 2008, 2009, for a serial entrepreneur in Chicago. His name is Dick Rothkopf. I helped build a brand called Chuggington and got it placed on the Disney Channel. So media and entertainment, understanding the media space. And then my journey in entrepreneurship just took off. I launched several startups. They were not venture backed. I did pitch to VCs, did not get funding, but was revenue positive. So I've been on the other side of the fence as an entrepreneur, as a Latina, as a female, pitching to the venture space early in the 2010s timeframe, where it was very male dominated. It still is, but it was very male dominated. And then I moved into supporting women and female founders. I launched a female founder community 7 years ago called Blazin Babes and helped hundreds of women launch businesses, whether they were stay-at-home moms launching businesses in their basement to high-powered execs leaving corporate and wanting to do their own thing. So really kind of grassroots PR, customer acquisition, advisory, workshops, events. And now I'm investing in these women. So my journey has been operator to founder to VC. And really the impetus is my personal experiences pitching to the venture market, and there not being diversity and there not being enough women. And I actually just got back from the All Raise conference the past 2 days, which is All Raise is a nonprofit that supports female fund managers and female founders to get more female founders access to capital. So that's a long-winded story of my background on how I got to where I am today.
Yes, absolutely. Again, very, very storied. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in with us this afternoon. I'm starting to see some comments here in the chat. Feel free. We will have a Q&A portion, so you'll get to ask Renata an abundance of questions. So feel free to start dropping them here in the chat. Again, so from apparel and fitness to media and tech and then to venture investing, you have lived multiple lifetimes here. So I imagine that you bring all of that wealth and operational functionality into the work you're doing today. Blazin Babes really being this great community for female founders and CEOs as well to learn. Can you talk to me a little bit about why Chicago and why Chicago has been, a place to start becoming or start like developing these sort of launching pads, for founders, for CEOs, for Latinas, for women in business overall? I would love to hear that part of your journey.
Okay, great. I mean, I am based in Chicago, but I do invest across the U.S. So I'm also looking for markets that are not just underrepresented founders, but female founders, but pockets in the entire U.S. that are being underserved. Like I do love Silicon Valley. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Boston, but even like Texas and other markets. And I feel like our market is a market that's underserved, at least in the pre-seed and seed stage level. And I honestly, and this is nothing against, I'm learning about venture and different regions across the U.S. and the behavior of investors. And traditionally, the Midwest has been very conservative, and it's a higher risk to write a check for a founder who just has an idea or it's just small amounts of revenue. So I think there are VCs out there that are investing in the Midwest only, like and writing smaller checks at the early stage, like M25, Victor at M25, who I love. And so I think there's a growing trend. And I also think the Midwest is an opportunity at pre-seed and seed at the early stages. And another VC, New Stack Ventures with Nick, who's awesome. He's really good at the early stage, and then moving in making introductions to the later stage. So there's a huge opportunity. But I think one of the things about the Midwest and Chicago, especially as a former operator and one who believes in the voice of the customer and really doing market research when you're at the early stages of investing, Chicago, if you look at the U.S. Census, it is the most. If you look at all the ethnic, let's just say ethnic, there's an equal distribution of all ethnicities in Chicago as it relates to the overall US. So if you're going to test a product or a service, Chicago is the best place to test at a small sample size because you have even distribution, which is equal to the distribution of ethnicities and market segments across the entire US. So and if you look at all the big food companies that are in Chicago and the manufacturing, this market is where everyone tests. So as somebody who came from the roots of entrepreneurship and innovation, Chicago is the place to actually test the product. The other thing about Chicago is that I think we as from the investor side, and this is kind of the flip side, we are somebody said this comment to me, it was another VC, and this is not bad mouthing Silicon Valley, but Silicon Valley is really into like, how many users do you have? They really don't focus on the revenue model. They just want to know you have a lot of people that are like on your email list. I'm just making it
right with the anticipation that those users will then convert into being customers.
But
right?
That's traditional. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but Chicago, they care about that, but they care more about the revenue. How are you going to make money? So I feel like if you had to place a bet, even though it's more conservative, I think every founder needs to really prove that they can make money. So if I give you this dollar, how are you going to make it into $2? So it is about the users and validation and have that email wait list, but it's about churning through the money, like turning this dollar that, especially in this market today where it's very, valuations are coming down and, founders are probably it's going to be a little harder to raise, even the VCs. If I give you this $1, show me how you're going to turn it into $2. So Chicago is a market where it's really revenue-based model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so I find that to be very unique as well. Again, the Midwest gets a bad rep for its conservative nature, but there's also a lot of sort of natural assets. Steve Case even talks about this in his book about the rise of the rest. There are always like certain regions that can do certain things very, very well. And it definitely appears that Chicago has this incredible, not to be coy, but like test kitchen for new products and services within the food and innovation spaces, among other things, that seems like it's just apropos for anyone looking to launch a brand or at least test within that space. So in terms of some of the innovations that you're seeing, particularly from the VC lens, what are some of those appealing opportunities that you're finding in Chicago that just are not existing anywhere else?
Well, I think I was just at my 20-year booth reunion, maybe about a month ago, and Mayor Lightfoot.
And Booth, University of Chicago School of Booth, correct?
University of Chicago School, yeah, the Booth School of Business. So it's an MBA.
Booth School of Business, awesome,
yeah, so
perfect. Yeah, just for some of us, who are not Chicagoans or Midwesterners, Booth School of Business is a badass B school. So
yeah, we're actually the number one business. We're the number one business school in the world.
That's incredible. So if you didn't already know that Renata Merino is a badass, we have further confirmed that through her stats at Chicago's Booth School of Business. So please continue.
No, Mayor Lightfoot, who's she was a keynote, and she actually was talking about how Chicago and the Midwest is really the epicenter of agriculture and manufacturing. So, you think crafts here, there's just so many big food companies in the Midwest, and we've got the farms. I mean, I drive with my kids to Galena, Illinois, and since they were babies and now they're teenagers, but we pass all the farms with all the farmers, and you see the way of living, and it's such a flat area. So I feel like we are at the epicenter of agriculture. So this is where, and then you just, talk to, what's her name? I'm sorry, I can't remember. Simple Mills. They came out of the Chicago Booth New Venture Challenge, which is one of the top 3 pitch competitions, startup pitch competitions in the country, right up there with Y Combinator and Techstars. And I'm a judge and an investor on the team there. And Simple Mills came out as one of the, I think she's gonna do really well, really well. Can't remember her name. I'm sorry, my apologies. But again, it is the epicenter of food. And I feel like if you're going to build a food startup, this is the place to be.
Absolutely. So along with that, when we look at the types of food innovation, what have been the things that you've seen over the last few years, and what do you feel like is coming?
Yeah, so I think I'm very fortunate. I have a strong team of industry experts that are experts in the specific sectors of food, whether it's the bar category and snacks, whether it's the cannabis as it relates to alcohol, and also in the alcohol beverage industry. So for me personally, I want to invest. I believe, this is my thesis, I personally believe the future of food is accountability. So I actually have a local farmers market that I go to, and I always interview the farmers, and I ask them, how are you managing your crops? What are you spraying on your crops? Your cattle, the meat that you sell, what is your cattle eating? What are they eating? And would you ever invest in it, like blockchain technology for tracking the origins of food? So that's something that I see the future is, when you go to Whole Foods and you look at something that says USDA organic, what does that really mean? If you're providing that meat or those grains to your child, your baby, how is that affecting their body? If we're eating food, understanding the environment where it came from, I believe the future in food is being able to scan a barcode on, your meat, and you can see where that meat came from, what the cattle ate. And I believe that's the future of food. I believe it's accountability. It's really using blockchain. Nobody's really done it well before. Whether it's going to be federally regulated or not, I do believe that we need to know what we're putting in our bodies. That's me personally. It's just a level of accountability and transparency. And also app enabled so farmers can see, I just talked to somebody who is investing in a technology that helps farmers figure out what's going on with their crops using, aerial satellite. I mean, really advanced technology. In terms of like, the bar category in meat, it's really every plant-based, as we know, is very, very huge. And even in the bars, and even in, I think the users now, like the millennials and the Gen Z, they're really caring about what they're putting in their body. They want to know. They care about the education. I think educating the consumers, in terms of looking at the back of the label, or even marketing and creating communities and educating people of what's in this bar, what's in this food. I think plant-based is huge. You see Tom Brady, TB12. He really is following, making sure, and you see some of these professional athletes outperforming other athletes just by eating plant-based diets. And I just think from a protein standpoint, a lot of controlled environments. You see Beyond Meat, you see some of these fish companies that are really trying to create a controlled environment so you can actually, at least the protein side of it. And I think it's going to move to vegetables and plants, of what's being sprayed on these, what are these animals eating, or what's being sprayed on these plants. So we know kind of what we're eating, what our children are eating, because I personally do believe that can potentially, what you're eating actually can affect your health. Like, are you getting cancer? Are the kid, is it related to kids and autism? I do
Right.
believe there's a correlation with what we put in our body, whether it's food or beverage, and how that relates to our longevity of health.
Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting to be able to combine here the food and the health outcomes as well, because that also starts to lean into health tech, in tandem with the food innovation conversation. We have quite a few people who are just making some comments here on LinkedIn. So just wanted to say thank you, Michael Halton, Valerie Thomas, Pauline Westone as well. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today. Looks like we have people tuning in from as far as Orlando. So thank you again for joining our conversation. And please, everyone who is tuned in today, feel free to drop your questions in the chat for Renata while we have her here. And it also looks like, okay, Fred is the juice man from North Carolina. He says this conversation is very, very informative, and agrees with you as well, Renata, that what you eat is very, very important. Are you seeing also as a VC, paying attention to the kind of companies that you are either meeting with or investing in, that there is some sort of a trend towards just healthier eating, healthier living, things like that, and using tech to enable just a better quality of life through our food?
Yeah, I think education is a really big thing. I mean, if you look at the market sectors, I mean, I don't know. I think it depends who you're talking about. I think with the obesity crisis and the affordability of healthy food, I think one of the things that I want founders to start innovating on is affordability, because I think that we can come up with the create cool, like Beyond Meat and all these awesome like plant-based, but what's the pricing and where's the distribution? Who's selling it? I think Mayor Lightfoot just said a month ago when I was at my booth, like there was a Whole Foods in the south side of Chicago in the Hyde Park where literally like she went in on a Saturday, and normally it's supposed to be like packed. A Whole Foods supposed to be packed on a Saturday where everyone's doing their shopping. It was dead because, and I think it ended up, they're going to replace it with a more affordable. So I think it's not just about, are we innovating around a really high quality food, but it's affordability. And how are we going to get that food to families that end up going to McDonald's? I mean, I think, I personally think when you think about this, when you're going on a driving trip across country and you have to make a choice, you're hungry with your friends or with your family or with your kids, where on the side of the road, where are you going to go? You've got McDonald's, you've got Burger King, and then there's a choice is Subway. I mean, if you're really going to make the right choice, it's Subway, but is that healthy enough? And is that affordable enough? So I feel like somebody needs to come up with innovation on how do we make this affordable for communities that really are trying to put food on the table for their families. And I think that's one area that is not innovative enough. Okay. And then because that's really middle America. I mean, that's where we have the mass. That's where everybody's eating, and you look at obesity and you look at kids. I mean, think about this. What are kids are playing video games all day. They're not as active. They're not playing outside. So what are they eating? I mean, I think snacks and as parents, making sure that we're setting the example and we're stocking our fridge and we're stocking our really, really healthy foods that kids like, and that are healthy for our kids.
I love that. And I love that that also translates into the kind of companies that do get an opportunity to provide some of those resources or are thinking at least within that frame. And again, as we think of the Future of Food Summit and just all the innovations on the ground, I know, Renata, you'll be attending some of the activities today there in Chicago. So I imagine that in your circles, as well as maybe with other investors, these are big conversations you all are having. I want to shift gears just a bit here. And you mentioned earlier as you introduced yourself, your family is from Mexico, or your father is from Mexico. You are a proud Latina. You've created such incredible communities, specifically, championing women as well as women of color across the board within business, whether it's entrepreneurship or through VCs. Can you talk to us just a little bit about, why this is a passion area for you and how this influences your investing choices?
Sure. I think for me, so I invest in female founders in all ethnicities at the pre-seed and seed stage level in health and wellness, which includes food and nutrition, as well as beverage. I I I personally want to be a leader to pave the way for all women. And I personally think that as a minority and female, it's almost like a double whammy. And I feel like, some of us, most of us that we're lucky enough to have a great education, a great network, a great experience, and we were dealt really good cards. Yes, we earned them. They weren't handed to us, but we got to a place, and this was spoken at the All Raise conference the past 2 days. We are in the room. So we are fortunate. We worked hard. It wasn't handed to us, but we're in the room. So it's our job as Latina, as Black, as women, as underrepresented to pave the way and bring along other women that may not only bring them along so they can lead with us, and they have to earn their stripes too, but let's not make it difficult for them. Let's open the doors for them. And also, let's make a point to make a conscious effort, not necessarily to fund those women, because this is not a charity check. You have to be able to actually show revenue, show you have a business model, show that you have a team, show that you've actually thought through this, show that you've put your own money into this. But all else equal, it is our job to look out for those women, find the pockets where they're not, don't just be lazy and just take, what Silicon Valley is handing to you, or, you really need to look and to even market yourself as a VC, as an investor. I am investing in women. I am investing in this area, and making sure and saying no, quite honestly, saying no to male founders. I mean, you know how many male founders in food have come up to me and said, well, and they have amazing platform. They're making money hand over fist. I said, I'm sorry, but that's not part of my thesis. So I think it's really sticking with being true to who you're funding and who you're supporting and who you're paving the way for.
Absolutely. That was very well said, Renata. Is this sentiment kind of spread throughout Chicago and maybe the Midwest as you're having conversations with investors? I'm very just curious.
I think it's growing. I think there's not a lot of us. I'm going to shout out to Samara of Chingona Ventures. She's Latina, and she funds both female and male. I think there needs to be more. There's she was former Irish Angels, Gail. I mean, there's not a lot of us. There are some female fund manager partners at male dominated firms, like at the Pritzker Group. I think there's Sonia Nager. So I'm just putting shout outs to people in Chicago that are women that are at the check writing. These are women who have check writing. It's not like you can join it. You can be a Chicago VC, a female, but if you don't have check writing, you're not part of the decision-making table. So I think many of us, like Gail, like Samara, like myself, we want to have our own fund, so we have the power to actually write the checks. So I think in Chicago VC, it's growing. It's still slow, but it's my job to actually bring more women along. And again, I'm going to be hiring men to be on my team. It's not just hiring women, but I think we need to help the other females that want to launch a fund or that want to be in venture, that want to have check writing. We need to help and support them and make introductions. And the only way it's going to work, at least in Chicago, is to actually physically make introductions and help those women.
Absolutely. And Renata, you had made mention about the kinds of founders that you have invested in, or either part of your portfolio, or that you're finding interesting. Are you just solely focused on the tech component, or are you also looking at CPG and other sort of environments?
Yeah, there's one fun. She's probably. I think she should be speaking at this. And I probably will see her. There's one company that I'm investing in that's e-commerce food, and she's the first food-based supplement for women in menopause. And she came out of the booth, New Venture Challenge, one of the top finalists. So again, that's tech, but e-commerce. She's selling on e-commerce, so she's not retail. She's the first. She probably will be retail, but that's one example in the food space. I'm trying to think another one. There's another company that I'm looking at that we've been working with for years, and she's raising now. It's not food, but it's a device that goes on helmets for concussions. So again, it's not tech, it's CPG, it's durable goods, but she already has interest in helmet manufacturers. I mean, this is really big technology. Again, health, wellness, sports tech, other areas that I invest in. And then the medical side, technology that's, IV technology that I'm looking at, female founded. Yes.
Okay, no, that's super awesome. So see, Chicago just it just has this open window right here. I think, of course, I want to continue to jump into this food conversation. Can you talk a little bit about maybe just some diverse opportunities for maybe those early pre-seed to seed stage companies within Chicago, maybe before they even get to the door of knocking on your door? In what way can they start to take advantage of the Chicago ecosystem as they are starting to build out their companies?
Sure. So I think Chicago has amazing resources. So I was part of the Latinx cohort 2 at 1871. 1871 is an amazing resource. And I know all the team there. Betsy's amazing. Howard Tolman, who was the former CEO, and Kevin Willer, who now runs Chicago Ventures. But I think that's a great place to get the support and resources that an early stage founder needs. They're amazing. I just was there the other day speaking on a LP panel, or attending an LP panel. But again, 1871 is an amazing resource. There's also some co-working spaces, like is it Workbox or Workbench? I can't remember, but they have launched an amazing strategy where they actually have co-working spaces and online opportunities that's by stage. So if you're early pre-seed, you would go to one location that literally has all the investors, angel investors, VCs that only invest in pre-seed. So, and you're only working with people at that stage. So, or there's another work, but that's like Series A. So it's really understanding. It's good to be around other founders that are at your stage level, and it's good to be around other investors that focus on that stage. So I think it's called Workbox. And then there's the Chicago Innovation, amazing opportunity there. I know Maura O'Hara, who's also the NVCA. She is on the board there. They're an amazing group to join. They have a women co-op program for women who are early stage. Usually it's around the summer that they provide that. And then I'm trying to think who else. I mean, there's also Techstars. We all know Troy Hennekoff of Math Ventures. He originally was leading that back in the day. I'm part of Techstars Boston because I support the Chicago startup ecosystem so much. I'm trying to spread myself to other states, but Chicago literally is the growing place to offer that. And obviously, I'm also for anyone who lives in the Hyde Park area, I'm a Polsky University of Chicago mentor and advisor to startups that support the Hyde Park South Side startup ecosystem, as well as all the universities across the University of Chicago. So medical school, law school, and these are founders both from the South Side as well of Chicago, as well as at all the universities. So there's so many resources that you can sign up for that I really think learning how to put a pitch deck together, understanding how to sell yourself. What is your pitch? What do you have? A 1-minute pitch? Do you have a 5-minute pitch? Do you have a 10-minute pitch? I mean, you need to do this at the early stages before you even start talking to someone like me.
Absolutely. Those preliminary opportunities to take full advantage of, for sure. So Renata, I want to actually go ahead and transition us to Q&A. And so we have a couple of questions here within the chat. And again, for those who are tuning in, feel free to drop your questions right here into the comment section. And then for those of us who may have missed part of this conversation, just a friendly reminder that this video will be available for the replay, so you don't miss any of Renata's insights or anything. So I want to go ahead to this first question by Omar Crosby. And Omar asks, what are some of the surprising or unexpected benefits for you or anyone that you have later realized in connection to your involvement on the VC side in relation to the Chicago food sector? Okay, so let me try to rephrase this a little bit, Omar, so that we can fully understand. I guess, what are some of the surprising benefits that you've realized, have happened in the Chicago food sector, be it just your general connections or specific to your role as a VC in Chicago?
Okay, I don't know if I could answer that question just specifically with food, but let me see. I'm just trying to understand the question. A surprising or unexpected benefits. Okay. So I'm not trying to make this about me, but this is more about everybody else. But one of the things that I'm a big proponent is networking. And so leveraging your networks. And I feel like the startup ecosystem in Chicago is really about networking. And now this relates to food, because we are the mecca of the crafts. Like we have all those big brands that are here. I think it's really important to leverage that in terms of whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit and you're a startup, is building your advisory. If you're a founder, building your advisory with those types of people. So I think the biggest surprise, I would say, that's unexpected as a founder and as I advise founders, is building your advisory board, not your true board, with these amazing executives from the food industry or from your specific sector that you're and getting their advice, like having them be part of your journey early on. And maybe you start with, hey, can you just give me some advice, 30 minutes of your time? And that conversation after several months can turn into them becoming your official advisor. So I think surprising for early stage food based is leveraging the network here in Chicago as an agricultural home base and I see it with my eyes over the several years, the growth of an early stage idea startup in that sector because of their advisory board, because you're leveraging the network here in the Midwest.
Yep. Sounds like lots of just relationship building throughout the process and some of
Yes.
the opportunities that the Chicago market has. No, thank you so much for responding to that. And thank you, Omar, as well, for posing the question. So our next LinkedIn user asks, what are funders doing to reach both established and budding founders who aren't active in the crowd of funding opportunities?
Okay, let me read that again. What are the funders doing? Funders to reach both
So,
established and budding founders.
So I imagine this may be people who aren't the most maybe popular or visible in this space. But how maybe you can speak personally to sort of how you find those hidden gems that may not be on the scene.
Yeah. So this is something I'm wrestling with as a investor, to access people who aren't in like the big, top universities. I mean, I'm in the Harvard Eye Labs. I'm in Chicago Booth NVC. I have connections with Y Combinator. So all the mainstream things, and you have to actually get into that. Now, a lot of VCs and investors, they have their website. So one of the things I'm investing in or looking into is a software that can be embedded in your website where somebody can upload their deck. They can upload some financials. They can upload spreadsheets where that can be filtered. So as an investor, it's not about funding the underrepresented in pockets that aren't popular, the in crowd, let's call it, as you're referring to the in crowd. It is, but we have to, and this is what I wrestle with is, so that those are inbounds, and that's actually a very low percentage of finding the gems is when someone fills out your form and you get it. Like there's a low percentage of probability that you're going to get funded. Unfortunately, it's really about network effects. But honestly, it's up to the founder. And this is kind of maybe, I don't know if this is really a good answer, but I'm wrestling with it. I'm trying to figure out what are the best ways to access these people that really don't have access to the Techstars, to the Y Combinators, to the top universities. The best way to get a higher probability of an intro to someone like me or a VC is through your network. And it's really about networking. This is going back to networking. But it's also our job as investors and VCs to actually find go to the locations that are underfunded. So like, for example, I just became a mentor and a coach for Capital Factory. That's in the state of Texas, because that's an underfunded state. I want to fund female founders in health and wellness in the state of Texas. I want to look for Virginia. Like, I want to look for the states that it's not the hot, sexy states. It's the states that no one's looking at. So as someone like me, who's an early stage VC, I need to look for the early ones that have really good valuations, that are the rock stars that no one else is looking at. In order for me to return my fund or return my investments to my LPs, I need to find those gems. So it's my job also to look for those pockets that aren't the in-crowd pockets.
That was definitely an excellent response to that. And again, thank you for posing the question. Renata, I just want to thank you for taking the time, for sharing so much of your knowledge and your wisdom, not just on the VC space, but also as it relates to ensuring that there are opportunities for not just kind of the usual crowd, right, and the usual suspects. Can you just share, as we start to close out here, just how Blazin Babes, came about, and sort of how that work continues?
Sure. So back in 2011 and 12, I read this book called, well, first of all, I was in the city of Chicago and I moved to the suburbs as a new mom. So, we do what we want for our kids to put them in good schools. And one of the things that really I was struggling with was continuing my networking into the city, going all the events, going to the World Summit, like trying to actually go to physical events back when we were having numerous physical events. And I struggled with that, trying to be a mom at home and managing everything and trying to get to events late at night. I'd miss the event. And I was really frustrated. And I also, when I moved to the suburbs, I wanted to find other like-minded women who wanted to work, wanted to launch a startup, but also want to be really present with their kids. I also read this book called The Stiletto Network, which was written by Pamela Rickman, who identified all these networking groups popping up all over the US with edgy, cool names like Power Bitches, ladies who launch instead of ladies who lunch. Really, really, and this is about, moms launching businesses in their basement to high-powered CEOs, helping one another, paying it forward, not competing, not backstabbing, but actually, let me make this intro to you. You need a website? I have a website person, but over cocktails, doing something fun, over shopping, not going to on a golf course or cigar bar with the guys, but doing stuff that we like to do. Like, I love your shoes. Where'd you get that bag? And then, oh, you're launching a company. I mean, this is where networking, these are where connections are made. So I decided to launch my own stiletto network, Blazin Babes. Back in 2013, I wrote the business plan. 2014, we launched. I had Danny Allen, who was season 13 winner of The Biggest Loser, who lost all this weight. Jillian Michaels is her friend. She was our keynote, signed up 50 women. And that's when it all began. We grew grassroots. I mean, this is helping one woman at a time launch their business, get their business idea started. I have so many testimonials of these amazing women. 2 of our women are actually venture backed now. Julie Novak of Party Slate, she's Chicago based. A lot of VCs have invested in her. And Lisa Carell of Proximity, who has a networking badge that allows people to make connections at conferences like World Chicago Business. Hopefully you guys are using it there. But these are women who had the idea when they became Blazin Babes. So now really it's about helping women scale and get them access to capital to scale on a much more macro level.
That's absolutely incredible. And just the way in which leadership, I think throughout the theme of your experiences from corporate into entrepreneurship and then into VC has really been this major theme in your life. So I just want to thank you, Renata, for taking the time to connect with us today. And again, for World Business Chicago, for connecting us and hosting this conversation on our behalf, as the Future of Food Summit, as part of the Chicago Venture Summit, is underway this week. And we are just super grateful. Renata, in what way can people stay connected with you and stay connected to your work?
Okay, so the best way is, LinkedIn, but it actually is not the best way. But but it's great. I just get so many calls. But I think following me on social, I think Twitter is a great place. If you're a founder, please, I'm very, very vocal on Twitter. I do state my mind. I state some of my personal stuff. It's not just all business. You'll probably hear tweets about my kids, about, which song I'm listening to when I'm riding in my car. I mean, literally, but it's really, I believe people want to, the right people will align with me if they like me and they like kind of my freestyle free flow style. I'm also on Instagram, and I think it's Renata Merino 45. And then I also have a website. If you really want to understand my background and what I care about and my mission, I'm an activist for women empowerment. My website is renatamerino.com. It's RenataMerino.com. I do have I'm looking for speaking engagements. I'm going to be doing some TEDx's on empowerment and serving the underdog. So would love to speak with you. Please reach out to me either on my website or follow me on social. I'm also on LinkedIn. I know this is a LinkedIn sponsor. I'm also on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is, but again, reaching me on LinkedIn is kind of tough because I get so many inbounds.
Same. I hear you. It gets to be a little bit the deluge. The deluge gets to be a little overwhelming, but absolutely.
Oh, actually, the last thing is I do a video podcast called True North. It's about overcoming adversity and pursuing our purpose. It's very more life challenges. I share my story. I've been through a lot of adversity, and so I do want to help not just women but men as well about overcoming adversity and pursuing our purpose. So it is called True North.
Love that. I just found it. So I'm going to go ahead and click subscribe. So everyone here who's tuning in, you should as well. Renata, again, we thank you so much for our partners at World Business Chicago. Again, very grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, and enjoy the food summit, Renata. Really appreciate your time.
Yes, I'm gonna. Yes. I can't wait. It's gonna be. Maybe I'll wear some comfortable shoes, not stilettos.
Probably, yes. Probably no stilettos on the floor this time. But enjoy, and thank you everyone who tuned in and joined us this afternoon. Again, you'll be able to check out the replay once we end the conversation. Everyone have an incredible day, and Renata, thanks again.
Thanks so much.